The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on the Canna Connect Show belong solely to the individuals and do not reflect those of Canna Connect and its affiliates, sponsors, or partners. Canna Connect does not promote or facilitate any activity that violates state or federal regulations. Everything you hear here is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not legal advice, it is not financial guidance, and it's definitely not medical direction. Seriously, don't take our word for it. Even if someone on the mic sounds like they know what they're talking about, and they're probably crazy smart too. Regardless of how legit our guests may be, you should always do your own homework, consult with your attorney, and understand the risk you're taking before you do anything when it comes to cannabis. Our intention is to keep it real. If you've got a problem with anything we've said, take us to court.
Welcome back to the Canna Connect Show. I'm your host, Stephen Eigenmann, and today we are joined by Tony Beman of the Center for Energy and Environment. One thing about the Center for Energy and Environment, or CEE, is they don't look at things in dollars and cents. They look at things in kilowatt hours saved. And that's your biggest differentiator when you're trying to figure out who CEE is, what CEE does. They're not just a rebates company. There's a lot more to it, and we're going to get into it on today's episode. So, Tony, we were chatting yesterday, and you were saying that, you're starting to feel more comfortable at these cannabis events. You guys have been showing up. We met at the end of 2023, first time at the Legacy Cup. I myself have had some time to process and understand how CE fits into the greater cannabis ecosystem, especially on the lighting side, the rebate side. Your team, specifically Laura from the marketing department, has worked really hard, and beyond that, beyond Laura, but the whole marketing team has worked hard to redefine the message and the approach that you want to present out, whether it's to the consumer, the business owner, or just the greater cannabis industry as a whole. Talk about how you've seen the shift and how it's starting to click more when you're out at shows on how CE serves the market.
Sure. Yeah, we've been going to quite a few shows for the last few years, and I would say every time they get progressively more engaging. Rewind a year, licenses are still not approved and everything like that. Now we've got folks with their preliminary approvals. They're in the real estate hunt. So I think things are progressing nicely. I think we've got, a dozen or so projects signed up and in various stages of implementation. Brad's got a nice case study that we're working on, which is going to be great to get out to
out in Watertown, Minnesota, right?
Exactly.
Which is in Xcel Energy territory.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very surprising when you look at that map. Everyone always thinks, Minneapolis Metro, but it's St. Cloud, Watertown, Mankato. There's a lot of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's still trying to figure out real estate, trying to find buildings that have enough service to support the new load. That's a big challenge for folks. Sometimes service upgrades are not only cost, prohibitive, or not necessarily prohibitive, but not cheap. And then there may be a delay too. There may be a time frame before you can get a new transformer installed.
Right. And there's a certain urgency. We've been waiting on this industry to come online. It is now online.
Yep.
Early infancy stages of it from a cultivation perspective.
Right.
And we can go there and we'll get there. But how is CEE set up differently than rebate companies that you might see at trade shows?
Yeah, I think, there's quite a few folks that helped on the rebate side in this industry that we've learned, and we've put them all through the, training on the program and, how to maximize rebates and all that fun stuff. I think a lot of them, add a lot of value, because I think a lot of those rebate companies have a lot of manufacturers that they can help the customer sift through and compare and understand differences. Some of them help with the HVAC and the dehumidification that we don't touch as we're just lighting, if that makes sense. Yeah, there's definitely value there. If there's cost constraints, a lot of those folks will have the rebate allocated to that organization rather than the end user. So the end user doesn't have to come up with the full $200,000 with $100,000 rebate. They just pay the $100,000, and the utility will write the check to the rebate company.
Yeah, there's an element of financing or
exactly
or creativeness in who gets paid when.
Yeah, and our big thing is there's no hidden fees. There's no putting markup on things or any of those type of business things. We're paid by Xcel Energy to save as much energy as we can get. And I think that was one big thing that Laura did a really great job with our collateral. Is I think over the last couple of years, I think when folks walk by, if they don't recognize us, they may think we're one of the rebate companies, because it's similar messaging and everything like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I think the big thing is, we don't take a cut, we don't charge, we don't anything, and there's nothing wrong with that business model. It's very helpful. I'd say 70% of our projects that we've had come through are through some type of rebate administrator organization,
Sure. Okay.
and they're really, getting up to speed with the program and the dimming protocols and the things we need to turn out reports. So we've got a pretty well-oiled machine by now.
Yeah, and I think what makes it complex or dynamic is there's been learning on both sides. You've taught people about the one-stop shop, the specific to micro businesses in Xcel Energy territory and how they can get LED lighting rebates.
Right.
But you've also learned along the way from professionals in the lighting space on the manufacturing side.
100%.
And so there's mutual growth, there's mutual benefit, and you've been training people. They've been training your team as far as new technology and innovation goes.
Right.
Difference being, though, CE measures success on taking kilowatt hours off the grid, lowering the amount of power strain on the grid, versus traditional companies are measuring themselves in dollars and cents.
Right.
CE is a nonprofit, and that speaks to a lot of how you guys approach projects and entrepreneurs and micro business owners.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. So you have a stated goal of how many kilowatt hours that you want to take off the grid this year?
For grow specifically, we're shooting for about 13 million kilowatt hours for the portfolio as well, because remember, we do commercial lighting, and that's kind of our bread and butter for the last 25 years.
That's right. So you guys can also help out hemp shops and dispensaries.
If you have lighting, we can help you.
It's not just retail cultivation that you're able to help within Xcel Energy territory.
Yeah. If you have a dispensary but not cultivation, just give us a buzz. Our rebates, we actually have a bonus program going on for traditional commercial lighting. And when the stars align, the rebate is covering about 75% of the project cost. So it can be very, very affordable in a nice way. And one thing that I've learned, not just with Grow, but just in my career, is there's a lot of benefits to quality lighting, not just the energy savings.
The benefit to the energy used and the environment.
Agreed. Yep. It's a big deal. And you can refresh the space and have a really attractive, dispensary or, whatever you're working on. So yeah, if you've got lights, grow lights, commercial lights, doesn't matter. We're here to help you.
That's kind of cool, because I know we've touched on it, but a lot of how I think about it is cultivation areas.
Right.
We have to remember that as long as you're in Xcel Energy territory and you're a micro business, there's a reason to reach out to the Center for Energy and Environment.
Agreed. Yep.
So, you've shared with me a little bit behind the scenes that you're getting close to your goal.
Yep.
Talk about what an ideal project looks like within your realm.
I think the best ones, because they're kind of all over the map. You've got folks that are just early in the inquiry process. Do you have rebates? That fundamental question, all the way to we're selecting we have 3 different manufacturers that we want to see what the rebate looks like,
Sure.
So the ones that are pretty fun is when you get into that compare and contrast between multiple manufacturers or rebate administrators or trade allies in general, and helping the customer understand the short and long-term economics of the decision they're about to make. So when you get into that multiple bid situation, I think that's where our value really helps. We're not the growing experts. We don't know about, spectral tuning and, all these different things and how, LED affects dehumidification load and all that. We definitely just help them understand how much energy they can save compared to traditional systems.
Hey everybody, Stephen with Canna Connect, taking a quick minute to shout out today's sponsor, CEE. That is the Center for Energy and Environment. If you're not familiar with CEE, they're your one-stop shop for all lighting rebates. If you are in Xcel Energy territory and you're a micro business, CEE is somebody that you need to talk to. Give Brad a call, give Tony a call, go online, one-stop shop, LED lighting rebates. They'll help take care of up to 60% of the costs associated with your grow and your build-out with the lighting. Really nice people, great people to work with, huge sponsors of Canna Connect, and give them a shout. That's CEE, Center for Energy and Environment. And when you're in Xcel Energy territory, the rebates are better.
Agreed. even if we can't support, we have a great network and a team at Xcel Energy. So if you have a mezzo or a cultivation or any of these things that we can't necessarily help you out with directly, as long as you're in Xcel Energy territory, we'll make sure to connect you for their lighting program for a mezzo, for example, HVAC, dehumidification. That's something that every project we're running. So we work with the end user to make sure that they have enough amperage coming into the building. We make sure that they're getting supported for lighting directly by One Stop, and then HVAC and dehumidification. We tag in our Xcel Energy teammates to make sure that we're getting them every rebate dollar we can for their building.
Because often you and I are just thinking through the lens of CEE, which is
Right.
micro businesses, but there's rebates beyond the
Yep.
lighting as it relates to Xcel Energy.
And they're very strong. Yeah.
And is that a testament to ultimately the size of Xcel Energy and their ability to be more competitive?
I think they identified through their Colorado market over the years that there's tremendous potential. And, energy efficiency just in general for commercial buildings has been going on, for decades, right? And so we're getting to this point of diminishing return. I mean, think about LED lighting in just a general commercial space. It's been commercially and economically viable for 10 plus years.
Okay.
So now we're wondering who's left, if that makes sense. And that same thing is happening with Xcel Energy. They have goals just like we do with the state. And how do we make sure that we accomplish those goals as affordably as possible? And I think both organizations, CEE and Xcel Energy, are looking for grow lighting to make a big impact on the portfolio-wide savings as a whole. Colorado went insane gangbusters, not perfectly. There was some hiccups, and a lot of changes have taken place in Minnesota to avoid a lot of those pitfalls.
Okay.
But when we say it's a million kilowatt hours for 2,500 square foot of canopy, and then our commercial, just to put it in perspective, our average commercial lighting project,
Yeah.
it's only about 35,000 kilowatt hours. So you have multiple multipliers on the amount of savings for
25x.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because the cannabis plant, the cannabis cultivation rooms are so lighting intensive.
Exactly. Yeah,
They're like mini data centers.
that's what I always say. Yeah, yeah.
Now, you touched on it a little bit, but projects that break your heart, or projects that ultimately don't work out. You've had a few of those come across your desk as well. You've learned through experience that some of it's not related to the rebate. It's related to getting the facility enough power.
Right.
They need 3-phase power.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so and getting that installed. Tell me a little bit about what it takes to get the right amount of power into a building.
Yeah, we've heard varying things because we basically hand that part of the process over to Xcel Energy because they have access to the grid and the amount of service coming in for that location and things like that.
Okay.
I don't know costs. It's not cheap to have a surface upgrade, that's for sure. I've heard Xcel specifically is about 3 to 6 months out on transformers, so that's a little challenging. I've heard outstate. The benefit of outstate is a lot of these municipals and co-ops are seeming to be a little bit quicker on the service upgrade. So I think that might be why we're seeing kind of a disproportionate amount of non-Xcel Energy customers versus Xcel being the biggest provider in the state. So we're definitely, we've got that real estate link where it lists all the available Xcel Energy properties and the amount of service coming into the building to mitigate that need, that cost and that time delay. But yeah, real estate has been the least common denominator throughout this whole process.
Yes, it's interesting how lighting and real estate kind of overlap in ultimately entrepreneurs landing where they need to be.
Yep.
And we certainly have compassion and empathy for the folks that are still pre-approved, that are still working through where am I going to set up my business. They feel a certain amount of time crunch as it relates to the runway that they have and the amount of time they have to get started. But I also think the OCM is figuring things out and adapting. And, we're still in that pocket of, hey, there's still time to figure this out.
Yeah.
But, looking ahead, like, what are you excited about? You mentioned the Watertown, Minnesota project. I mean, you shared with me offline that this group has a certain level of acumen that you're really impressed by. And
they are. Yeah, I mean, it's been so great. Like I said, there's no theme between these growers. You've got folks that are just bootstrapping it, and we can do multiple phases. You can do 5,000 square foot of flower canopy within a micro business, but I'd say half of them, if not 2/3 of them, we're starting with a small phase. let's do one room, let's get some profit coming through,
Yep.
take that savings, build phase 2, build phase 3. And so we're trying to remind customers that's not all or nothing.
Yeah.
Let's do what you can do now, what you can afford now, and we'll support you throughout the process. Commercial lighting, we have 17 phases over 10 years with some of these organizations who are trying to save energy, but they just don't have the money to take the whole enchilada at once.
So 1 to 2, 2 to 4,
Yep.
4 to 8.
We're happy to support people short and long term. We can have an ongoing relationship as they expand their grow rooms over time.
Absolutely. And how long has the Center for Energy and Environment been around?
We've been doing, 40 years as an organization, but as far as lighting and the partnership with Xcel Energy, that's been since the year 2000. And then Grow, we're about 3 years in, somewhere in there.
And that's great. I mean, 40 years for the entire organization, 25 years in partnership with Xcel, 3 years with a focus on cannabis.
Yep.
But I'm sure as a leadership group, there's vision into the future, right? The Center for Energy and Environment wants to be around in another 40 years. And the cannabis industry in Minnesota, the folks working on it want it to be around for another long-term 40 years, 80 years, forever.
Yeah.
And there's certain things to like about the industry. There's certain things to maybe dislike about how Minnesota's setting it up. I think, though, if you zoom out and you look at all of the adult use recreational states, and Colorado's the one where you have good amount of exposure to, it's never perfect. It does take time. I was talking to Carol Moss at Lucky Leaf, lawyer for Helmuth and Johnson, about how things change, and it takes experimentation and tinkering, right? You have to try things, see if they work, get feedback.
Sure.
And the industry is just known for that.
Yeah.
It's known for pivoting, tweaking, especially in the lighting and cultivation rooms. Not to take anything away from the dispensaries, right? But to dial it in, that's a common phrase these days.
Sure.
And so for folks that are still working through a lot of the decision making, the Center for Energy and Environment will be at NECAN, it will be at CannaCon, and so there's going to be opportunities for folks. If you've seen Tony, if you've seen Brad on camera and you want to have a conversation, come out to these shows and these events. You guys can connect further. Also, it's easy to reach out to CE online.
Yeah, exactly. Just track us down, guys. We're here to help.
Yeah, great resource, and that's why we really appreciate having Canna Connect be a part of the CE be a part of the Canna Connect Show, I should say, because you guys are a resource for us, and we enjoy sharing the good news, spreading the good word, and continuing to open up people's eyes to the Center for Energy and Environment.
Yeah, we're mission aligned since day one. I love it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we're recording this middle of March. April is going to be a busy month for dispensaries, but then I think the trade shows that we've talked about, May and June, and hopefully by the summertime, things will be ripping a little bit further.
Yeah, I would love to do 30 million kilowatt hours in grow this year. It would just be the mic drop. It was Brad's idea from the beginning. He tagged me in saying, let's do grow. And there was, I don't know if we can do this. And that's not how our regular program works. So a lot of development and program design and research and everything like that. So I got to give credit to Brad for hatching the idea, because I think it's internally at CEE, I think a lot of people are excited about the potential. So I think
the projects are so much bigger than your average.
Well, and they're our favorite type of customer. We're, by definition, a small to mid-sized customer. They need more capital. They don't have energy managers on staff. They don't have, Fortune 500 budgets with greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. It's just regular people who want to get into the industry, bootstrapping it with every dollar they've earned over the, for their whole career, taking out mortgages, taking out loans, all this stuff. So we're just,
and you're helping them solve problems.
We're single-minded in our approach to make sure that they are looking at it long term, because my only caveat or concern is I hope folks aren't looking at first costs of HPS versus first cost for LED and using that as their delineation.
Yes.
When you stack the rebates on top of it and the energy savings, we've yet to have a project that's greater than a 1-year payback. So from I have this much money and I have this many things to spend it on. Who's got the best economic return? Commercial grow lighting with LEDs definitely pencils out. It's a very savvy investment long term. I mean, like we said, there are 1 million kilowatt hours a year that you're not buying in the next 10 years.
Right. Because you've got to pay that electric.
Agreed.
Yes, you got to buy the lights, but you also got to pay the electricity.
Exactly. Yep.
And by shrinking your electricity bill, you're going to give yourself longer runway
Agreed.
to figure it out. So
Agreed.
it makes a lot of sense. I think this was one of the most eye-opening conversations that we've had so far.
Sure.
Appreciate you coming back in.
Happy to.
Yeah, I mean, things are moving like we talked about.
Yep.
And I think in another few months, things will be moving even faster.
Yeah, we'll just catch up in a few months and give you the news.
Yeah. Tony, good to see you.
All right, good man.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, guys.